Thank you very much. Thank you to the conference organizers for the invite to come back this year. Jeter Hall disclosed he's from the U.S. I'm going to disclose as well from the U.S., originally from Buffalo, Niagara region, so I would say I'm Canadian by proxy. Focusing on initially the comment from the mayor about a elbows down approach. You know, coming from the U.S., spending 31 years there, I saw a lot of elbows up approach. And I've been in Canada for 17 years, in my position for 17 years, and heard a lot of talk about elbows down, but compliments to Melody for evidence of elbows down. If you look at the delta between last year and this year, it's quite significant, so it is evidence of that. My talk today is about partnerships that power progress in addressing rare isotope supply. I'll talk about the initial barriers that we experienced, some current barriers, and how we're addressing those to bring more product to patients. So about 5 years ago, prior to the stand-up of Actineer's joint venture, both CNL and ITM had an idea that actinium-225 could be a viable radioisotope, however, had some barriers to bring that product to market. Peter mentioned nicely about CNL's history with their dominance in Moly-99 production. As with any national lab that has access to highly enriched uranium and a reactor, there's thorium, so they were able to perform the R&D and develop a thorium generator. They had lanthanide, actinide expertise, a large inventory of radium-226, although with the thorium method, didn't do much use to them. Did not have a sales and distribution network and a commercialization pathway. So that was some of their barriers. From an ITM perspective, ironically, some of their founders 20 years ago produced actinium with the P2N method, and so they had experience with that. They had a large sales and distribution network through lutetium and gallium. They have commercialization experience with their own molecule. However, the country of Germany had prohibited their handling or use of or possession of radium-226. So we have two companies desire to bring actinium to market, began to talk, and here we have the genesis of a joint venture. So how do we bring this partnership together for a strategic value-based partnership to bring actinium to market? It's a 50-50 joint venture that was founded in October of 2023. Both funded and equal ownership. There's in-licensing of intellectual property. So if we take a look at CNL, they have the large radium inventory. Actineer has exclusivity of radium from CNL. They have R&D expertise as evidenced by everything they've done in the past, but more specifically the thorium generator. And then SME experience across multiple disciplines. From ITM's perspective, they bring GMP expertise from their lutetium and gallium lines, so they are a service provider to Actineer as CNL is as well. Regulatory expertise in getting things through, as Actineer will be the market authorization holder. And then I've already mentioned the sales and marketing expertise. So here we have a joint venture formed October 2023. Well, now what? How do we take that to working together as service providers, building the joint venture up from the ground, and then being a large-scale provider of actinium-225. Last year, I showed you our complex supply chain. It still exists, and I'll talk to you how we're going to break that barrier down to move forward into a large-scale production facility. So CNL has a stockpile of radium as mentioned. However, I think it was last year that the IAEA had put out a notice to countries around the world that had a liability of radium on their books from legacy sources, connected those companies to the countries that wanted to get rid of that radium. CNL was one of those countries or companies and did a great job in recruiting and increasing their stockpile of radium-226. That radium-226 has to be purified to a specification, not an easy process. I'd like to give credit to Randy and his team doing a great job at CNL for processing that radium and creating targets. So these radium sources are either in needle or capsule form, has to be both either mechanically or chemically broken down and then separated. That radium is then created into a target. That target gets shipped off to our great partners at the Sylvia Fedorik Center for Irradiation. And then our clock starts. So I lose 7% of my product per day that is post-irradiation until it gets to a patient. So it gets driven 48 hours back to CNL for separation of the actinium and the radium. It takes about 4 days. It gets driven to Montreal, flown to Frankfurt, driven to Munich. Another 3 to 4 days of GMP dispensing, sterilization, and polishing, and then eventually off to patients. So it's a very fragmented supply chain that somehow we have to address, centralizing it, not only in one location, but also potential other locations around the world. So our plan is to have a multi-phase, and I'll bring you up to speed on our progress compared to last year. So last year, we spent the majority of our summer doing additional R&D. We had came out of last year, December, manufacturing a few targets, and we really hit the ground running thanks to CNL in 2026. So in our near future, we intend to locate one of the processes at CNL into another location to allow CNL to increase their output on radium. It will allow us to do process validation, receive a GMP certificate, which is the precursor to market authorization in Canada, US, European Union, and then eventually selling GMP off to the rest of the world. We do use ITM as our distribution partner. We have not fully landed on the location of where our large production facility is, but I would expect that you can receive some news from that relatively soon. So we've broken the barriers down initially of CNL and ITM not having access to commercialization channels. We formed the joint venture. We're eventually into a scale-up phase where we can have large-scale production, and then in the end, we will have a large production facility and furnish that demand. Joe, on the keynote presentation, talked about 12 curies annually, so we have some work to do to scale up to be able to furnish that supply. Thank you.